Hey guys, welcome back to the Flyin podcast. I'm here tonight with my co-host Sam. How we doing tonight, bud?
Doing good, doing good. 1-1 on the week, so you know, could be better, but we kicked a certain team and a certain player out of the playoffs this past weekend, so felt good about that one for sure.
He should Who should not be named. Let's just say that. We'll talk about it later, but kind of a quick rundown of what we're going to cover tonight. Like Sam had mentioned, we were 1-1 on the week. So FC Cincinnati had a loss to New York Red Bulls this past Wednesday. They then beat Inter Miami down in Miami on Saturday. So that'll be kind of the first half of the podcast. In the second half, we'll do our traditional jersey swap. Card of the week. We'll get into a little bit of our trivia question. I had a good one for this week. And then at the very end, kind of interesting, we're going to talk about some of the MLS Awards and the conversation about some of those. Sam's going to give us a little bit of a breakdown on what goes into that. So please stay tuned to the second part. We'll chat about that more. Sam, Wednesday night's game was definitely overlooked after a wild celebration the Saturday before when we won, Supporters Shield. But Pat Noonan kind of rolls out a rotated squad. It was just good to be back in the stadium to, have the anticipation of celebrating a trophy there. And I think we kind of overlooked the game, but that's okay.
Yeah, to kind of go off of what you're saying, I think part of that was the fact of the majorly rotated squad. I mean, up top you had Baji and Bupenza, which that was their first start together up top, and then you had kind of an interesting choices in my opinion to go with Powell and Gaddis on out wide. Would have liked to see Halsey or somebody else out wide, as well as Angulo in the middle with in Wobodo. I know we saw Pinto come in the latter half of the game, but maybe should have seen him to shake things up as well. But saying that after the play is easier than beforehand. But yeah, it was definitely interesting from a lineup perspective.
I am right there with you. I thought this was Brett Halsey's time to shine. Like, this dude is young. He might have a future in our starting rotation as soon as next year, potentially, with Barrial maybe leaving, or even Arias if he doesn't stay. I really hope he will. But Halsey's going to play significant minutes of any game we've had. Like, what you're going to get out of Ray Gaddis. You know what you're going to get out of Alvis Powell. Why not put in Brett Halsey to see what he's got? So that was the only thing that I kind of had beef about. Kind of leading up into it, I was excited again just to see the boys on the field, some different players, maybe that will get some good experience in a pressure situation. And what I mean by that is twofold. New York Red Bulls plays such a high pressing game, which I think a lot of teams in the playoffs will play against us. And then secondly, the fact that New York was trying to fight for a playoff spot. So you talk about kind of high stress, high pressure, which kind of builds a similar atmosphere to a playoff setting, especially playing at home. So to see, as Sam referenced, to see Angulo in there, to see Kubo playing at the 10, to see these guys in different positions that we haven't seen much of recently, it's good experience for them.
Yeah, I think a lot of that kind of inexperience with everyone playing together because there were so many changes throughout the squad kind of showed, especially in the early part of the game. Just to go right into it, you have Red Bulls has a lot of chances early. They were kind of capitalizing on a lot of different, offensive kind of not only shots, but also they were just seemed to be in our own half, most of that, at least first 20-30 minutes. But they open the scoring and Amaya steps up and hits a pretty decent strike. And one of those guys in Angulo that you had just touched on,
Yeah.
he needs to step sooner than that.
He's got to get out there
And
and pressure the ball.
yeah, and just to touch like on the game as a whole, real quick, like he got outplayed by Amaya as well. I know Angulo is our backup center mid, but yeah, I thought he got absolutely outplayed by Amaya in the middle. Amaya was running circles around him, but
Hey,
I don't
Sam,
really don't
who
don't really like to see that.
who would have thought that Amaya could play well in Cincinnati?
Yeah, the stage isn't big enough for him in Cincinnati, but apparently when you say something, he'll shut you up a little bit against our reserves. So
I will have to say the guy didn't celebrate his goal. So in the 12th minute, Amaya has a shot from outside the box. He puts it in the corner. Decent shot. We didn't have guys step on it. It was well taken, but doesn't celebrate. I think Amaya is just kind of one of those guys that doesn't do that in general. Maybe it was intentional being back in Cincinnati from the team that drafted him, for those who aren't familiar. But still at the same time, I'm like sitting there like, go figure, we just won a trophy and we're all excited. And then this guy comes in and scores against his former team. Like, come on.
yeah, yeah,
But so from that moment on, like, Sam was kind of referencing, I don't know if, our three center backs were at least familiar with each other, but I think it was more of an outside back problem this whole night. The first goal definitely was more of, obviously through the middle, but it was played out wide first and then kind of shuffled in. I think Powell was out of position on that first part. Definitely the second goal, though. The second goal definitely comes from out of position play. Again, the wing backs not getting in good positions to clear the ball. So in the 17th minute, I believe they get their second goal and we're already down 2-0.
yeah, yeah. Well, a little before that, Kubo has a chance.
Sure.
I know Baji had kind of I want to say he passed it to Kubo there in the middle.
Yeah.
Kubo had a left-footed shot, but it just went right at the goalkeeper, and Baji was right in the wide open in the
Wide
middle,
open.
right
Yeah.
there. It was Bupenza to Kubo, and Baji was right in the middle. Um, would have liked to seen him maybe dish that off a little bit. I'm not sure if there was room, but that was the one chance that I thought was glaring in that first half. Other than that, yeah, the next goal was kind of apparent.
Do you think FC has a problem with one-on-one scoring with the goalkeeper? I've kind of seen a trend over the past several games. If you kind of think back to the Vasquez one at home that he doesn't put in, you go back to the week, I think against Toronto, that Bupenza's one-on-one with the keeper, another one where Vasquez one-on-one with the keeper. They got to do better at finessing it around the guy. Like they got to do better. Take notes from Lucho. He does the best on the team, I think, and taking advantage of that.
Well, yeah, I was about to say it's probably Lucho does the best out of all of them, as far as one-on-one play in general. But yeah, the to your point that you were saying earlier, Red Bulls goes up 2-0. Alvis DePaula, which I thought was really funny. I like to call him Alvis Powell's evil twin from New York, it sounds like, but he scores a little too easy, found, just a perfect pocket of space. Nobody stepped to him. Haglin, Miazga, Mascara, like nobody wanted any piece of it. And it was a perfectly placed goal. Just, 2-0, 17 minutes in, not the perfect scenario there.
I think although like the center back gets beat on that one, like I got to give my flowers to Yerson Mascara. The dude just continues to impress me. Just kind of moments down on, the end line where he's battling one-on-one or recovering. I've just never seen a player be able to cover so much ground. And you kind of saw that in moments in the first half where they were put out of position and he just covered for us. I mean, it could have been 3 or 4-0 if it weren't for him. So we go into the half, we're down, 0-2. I wasn't really sure how to feel. I'm not going to lie, this whole night, because I was so excited about what was to come after the game. But the guys like showed more fire, and kind of to my point in the second half, I believe it was the 60th minute, was it, that we get the subs in?
64th.
64th minute,
Yeah,
we get the
60 minutes.
subs.
Yes, no, 60th minute, and then
Yeah, I thought it was. So
yeah.
Barrial and Acosta get subbed in. And it just changes the whole team, the whole mentality, the whole way that New York has to play. I think prior to that, the possession was 60-40 for New York. You get those two guys in, and all of a sudden we're dominating possession. We're dominating, where we have the ball. Alvaro and Acosta are just creating chances, just the two of them. I mean, it was just fun to watch. And the spark. I mean, if there was any time to see the impact that Lucho has on this team. It's in a moment when we're down 2 goals and he's got to create things. And I mean, let's be honest, he ends up creating the moment, in this bizarro situation. I don't know if you want to run through it. I can run through it because I was livid through this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would you want me to cover it?
Yeah. All you.
So there's a through ball to Lucho down the line. Lucho takes it down on the defender. He's one-on-one with the guy, tries to play a left-footed cross across. The guy like has his arm out to the side. His arm was extended, in my opinion. I could see it from where I was sitting. And so the ref is right there looking right at it, waves his arms, no PK, no, handball, nothing, and is looking directly at the play. It's not like it's behind him or anything. He is watching it. So that happens. They get the ball and they go down on the attack, and New York ends up scoring. And I've never seen people so livid because this had been building. This ref was probably the worst I've ever seen for an FC game. And that says a lot because we've had some really bad refs. But, so we're all calling for a VAR, a review, because it's like clear as day that this guy made a handball on it. And, of course, like he takes a second to act like, oh, like we'll see. I'm sure the MLS people were in his head like, dude, you got this wrong. You got this way wrong. Because he goes over and he checks, and it's a clear handball. So we get a PK out of it. They negate their goal. And then Lucho steps up and does what he does best.
Yeah. The fact that how do you not see that? I just don't understand. You're right there. How do you not call that right away? It's so clear and
Blatant
obvious.
PK that he misses in front of his own
Yeah.
eyes and has to go to VR to reverse it. I mean, that is terrible. That is so bad. So, that kind of leads to the tensions of things. Lucho now has 7 straight PK goals in a row without one being saved. So, shout out to him for being unpredictable with those, because sometimes it's tough. But, we're back in the game. It's 1-2, but then the guys are pushing even more. I thought Pat should have brought Vasquez in at the 70th minute. Or immediately after we score. He doesn't end up bringing him on until I think the 81st, 82nd minute. So that was one thing that I just wanted to point out, is that they could have had a little bit more firepower up front if they brought him in earlier. But the tensions keep building. We end up getting all these phantom calls because, let's be honest, New York plays this way. They play that every time you touch them, they fall to the ground. And I am so sick of it. I am sick of them embellishing everything. I mean, they only had one guy that ends up getting a fine, at the end of this game because of embellishment, but it's just ridiculous. Every time our guy would touch them, they would fall to the ground, no matter where it was, no matter if they were winning, losing. I mean, but definitely by the end, because they're trying to waste time. The keeper of New York Red Bulls was driving me crazy because when they do eventually end up winning, he celebrates and like throws his hands up to the fans and stuff. And it's like, congrats, dude. You beat a team that wasn't even playing for anything. Like, good job. I don't know what you want out of this, but I don't know if you felt that way watching it. I'd never been so frustrated by a moment.
Yeah, it was, I mean, it was weird, but to your point of when Lucho comes in, Barrial comes in, Vasquez comes in, like it sucks that those guys have to come in for us to get energy, right? I really wish that this game had a chance to give our bench so much confidence.
True.
It had a chance. It really did. But having to quote unquote kind of be saved by the starters to come in and all right, now we gotta try and make this a game. In the 80th minute, we have a beautiful play between Barreal or Vasquez and Acosta, back and forth 1-2. Vasquez brings it down, chests it to Acosta. Like you're like, oh my gosh, like here we go. And then once again, it's a case of Vasquez getting tripped up under his own feet. I mean, the pass was a little bit behind him, but
A
at the
little
same
behind him,
time,
if I
like,
remember, yeah.
Yeah, like at the same time, maybe I don't know if he realized, but he had Bupenza wide open behind him, but his back was turned to him, and
They had a lot of
it's just
chances
like another.
to capitalize, and you felt like it was building.
Yeah,
Like you could feel it in the stadium, like they were pushing. And like you said, they created so many chances. it was just unfortunate. I think what was tough for me too, like it gets down to a point where the fans are getting really frustrated, and you can tell that's kind of building over into the coaching staff, into the players on the field. And I hate to say it, but as soon as we kind of lose our heads to that, we tend to just keep at that and then not really focus on things. So,
Well,
that kind of
and then
leads to
a red card happens.
the red card. Exactly. And
Yeah.
just a lapse of concentration, to be honest with you. Like at first glance, I thought, oh, that's not a yellow, but I go back and look at it, and that was more of a yellow card than the first one was. We're
Yeah.
referring to Alvis Powell getting a red card, in the 87th minute, but you're putting, a team that's now having more momentum, creating opportunities, kind of behind now because you're down a man. And that was just frustrating for me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, just he was lazy, tired legs, and you got to be more aware than that. I mean, to be fair, I don't think it wasn't it wasn't like, oh, that was a goal saving foul, right? There wasn't anybody in the middle for Red Bull. So even if he takes that down the wing,
yeah,
maybe, one of our defenders runs him into to out of bounds, right? So,
yeah,
it is what it is. But to your point earlier on, the cards, like that's 6 cards in one half for one team
that's
in
bad.
a matter of however, I think the first card in the second half for Alvis Powell was, I think, 40, 47, 48 minute.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one, 87th minute. Like,
Yeah, it
insane.
was a lot of cards. It felt like this guy was giving them out like candy. It felt like, honestly, I felt like this guy was trying to
Early
control
Halloween.
the game. Like early Halloween. Yeah, he's passing them out, right?
Yeah.
But it was so bad. I'm sure everyone in FCC land can echo, like, it felt more of like the ref show than the guys on the field. And when you take our ability away to play and you don't know what a foul is, I mean, that for me was the hardest part. And we'll kind of talk about that here in the Miami game too, is like, what is a foul anymore? Just like in the NFL, like what's a catch? Like what is a foul? I don't know. There's been so many variabilities on OB, on potential fouls. And like, we'll talk about it again, like I said, for the Miami game, but I don't even know, man. But anyway, that game ends. We kind of have to put it by us because there's a shield celebration to be had. And what an awesome moment. Shout out to your dad for helping to deliver the shield celebrations,
The stage.
stand.
Yeah.
And I think it was kind of that what would you call it? The overhang, I guess, or you know what I'm referring
For
to?
all,
That
like,
had
on
this
the stage or like behind it.
behind the stage, yeah, that had like the circular thing
I
behind
would
it.
I would say just like a background arch.
The background arch, yeah. I mean, that was cool. They did it up well. They had the stage, they had that going, they had the fireworks all night long. I mean, it was such good vibes. I mean, for having a championship, the first one since 1990 in the city for a professional team, they wanted to do it upright. It's unfortunate that it happened after the game like it did, because I've never felt so conflicted in my life. And I
You
think
could
the
tell you
players,
could tell like Pat Noonan was very much
oh
like,
my gosh.
"Hey, I'm sorry." That's what the first thing he
Yeah,
said.
that's
He was
what he
like, "Sorry
said.
to get you a win," and he was like,
That
"But
tells you how
let's
competitive that dude
celebrate this."
is.
Yeah, absolutely, and I loved it. I was like, I love how straightforward he was.
That was great. I mean, it was very funny because it was like so up and up from, Jeff Birding, Carl Lindner. And then Pat gets on there and he's like, dude, I'm sorry, man. Like, we
Yeah,
should have done better, but we're here. We won the shield. Like, we're happy about it. But the players kind of had to take a minute to reset and like actually be like, oh, like we actually now get to celebrate this. Um,
yeah.
so that was interesting. Things that kind of stood out for me, I'm really happy that FC brought all the front office on the field. All the ticket reps got to celebrate, all the training staff. Even, Sam, you called it the last podcast. Great call. I mean, handing supporter shield from the supporter shield leaders or the supporter leaders, down the Bailey and into the field, to Lucho's hands. Lucho had the best reaction of all time of like, once he finally holds the shield, he's like, oh man, this thing is heavy. I don't know if you caught that or not.
Yeah.
So Lucha's reaction was fantastic from that. And then you get all the guys lifting it. I stayed late and went down close to the field to see, all the guys walking around with the shield. Awesome moments. I mean, like I had texted our group, like, these are moments that you like have been celebrating in FIFA for all these years, and now it's a reality. Like I have a video, a
Well,
side by side on it.
so I want to hear your perspective of it, because for me, obviously, watching the celebration, via Apple TV versus in the stadium is
Yeah,
completely different, right? But for me, it almost looked like and felt like, I mean, yes, there was celebration there, but it almost looked like relief. Like it looked more like
true.
relief than celebration.
And more relief because of the fact that we had something to celebrate after a loss, I think.
Yeah, yeah,
So if you saw that reaction, it might have been because of what just had happened, but also relief on the fact of like we've had 3 terrible years, to start the MLS, and then you build last year, and it's like,
yeah.
man, we can just enjoy ourselves and say that we're champions, we're undisputed, for sure. I felt for sure like, that was a huge relief for everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting. Like watching it, it did look like everybody, the Bailey was rocking. It was so cool. And to your point, we all like we talked about the supporters passing it down.
Yeah.
I had talked about, why don't we put it in front of the Bailey? I think somebody on Twitter asked, like, why would they do that? It looks weird. And I'm like, well, for photos. And he's like,
It's
oh yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I think he's more referencing like if you're gonna celebrate, like celebrate towards your fans, not away from them. But for the photo ops, like it looked way better that way. I mean, having the
Oh yeah,
whole
so
Bailey
cool.
filled behind it. The only thing that was missing was a tifo, but that's too hard to get done in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And then getting all the Bailey to have shields to kind of hold up, but people brought their own, so I thought that was really cool. Um, Shout out to the FC Cincinnati fans. Again, for those who aren't familiar, we sold out of those, shield t-shirts from the club in 20 minutes the first day. On Wednesday, they were going, like crazy as well. So, we celebrate our team. And I absolutely love that. And couldn't be happier, for everyone from top to bottom who was there to kind of see everything through, from the bad years all the way through. And we'll kind of keep that rolling. So, on to Saturday's game against Inter Miami down in Miami. We not only, clinch trophies, but we also knock people out of their seasons too. So,
Yeah, from Wednesday to Saturday, we had 8 changes in the lineup. So completely different mindset going to play Miami. To your point, we're gonna knock these guys out of the playoffs, take them off their pedestal, if you will.
I felt like the
And
underrated story was how upset our coaching staff was that they lost that Open Cup game. I mean, they,
yeah,
like you said, make 8 changes and they're like, we're going for it. We don't care if we won the league. Like, we're going to beat Messi. Even if he's a sub, we don't care. We're going to go down to Miami. I mean, I have a stat for you, Sam. This is the first one that FC Cincinnati has had at Miami. Previously, they were 0-2-1. So, first win down in Miami. We've had wins, in Orlando and Florida before, but to beat Miami at Miami was a huge thing.
yeah, absolutely. And although the vibes going into the game were very much like, let's kick the crap out of them, the first half belonged to Miami. Like,
That's
I
true.
don't
That's
know,
valid.
I don't know how they weren't up 3-4-0 on us, to be honest with you, because within the first 9 minutes, FC Cincinnati gets saved, as Miami kind of has a rocket of a volley like right in front of the goal, and it goes right off the crossbar.
Crossbar, man. It was both ways this night. But yeah, you're exactly right. They kind of dominated even without Messi. They didn't have Jordi Alba, but they did have Busquets. And that's sometimes all you need is one person in the midfield. Our guys, to me, I don't know if you felt this way, just didn't kind of acclimate to the heat down there as quickly. Maybe that had something to do with it. The playing surface didn't look the greatest, but to be honest with you, neither did TQL after the last match either. Some people actually made comments about how bad the field had looked after the game, but that's a side discussion on that one. But you're right. The first half, at least, I was like, this is kind of ugly, but it ends up being 0-0, to end the half. Anything else you want to kind of touch on the first half?
Uh, no, I mean, other than right after
Wasn't
the
a
half,
ton.
right? Right after the half, FC Cincinnati kind of finds their footing, right? And
Well,
once
you know
again, like
why?
I
Santos
hope
comes out.
well, yes, Santos for Bupenza, which I don't know why Pat doesn't just start Bupenza. Like I feel like that's happened 3 or 4 times already this like second half of the season.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say was I hope this team does not like just pride themselves on being a second half team. I talked about this a couple weeks ago.
True.
We cannot be a second half team when it comes to the MLS playoffs. Like you can't just wait until the second half and be like, oh, we'll get them after halftime. Don't worry, like we're a second half team. Like that's not how that works. I promise you, in the playoffs, there's going to be even more time wasting by the other team. There's going to be even more like chances to kind of swallow the game up. But yeah, right after halftime, we've got a great chance, biggest chance probably yet in the game. Lucho to Arias. Arias boots a rifle. Unfortunately, it's just right at the keeper on the right
Makes a
side.
pretty decent save at it.
Bupenza's right there to clean it up. And like he tries to just dink and dunk it like over top of the keeper. And I mean, great save by the keeper with his right leg, but why aren't you smashing that thing into the back of the goal?
I saw that a couple games ago from him too. I don't know why he doesn't just rip it in. Yeah, I'm not sure. But at
It
least he
like
looked deadlier I should say, looked deadlier with him on the field. Um, but you're right. I totally agree. I couldn't agree more that into the end of the season, especially if you're not on the front foot, like you're behind, and it's way harder to play that way in a tournament style, where you really have to find a goal. And now you're playing a Red Bulls type team that you know is falling every time they get the chance and time wasting, and then you got to like play into that. And we don't want our team to get into that way. So come out, be dominant, show your potential early on, and take the lead. Do those things quicker because other teams are going to capitalize on you. Finally, at least in this game, we take advantage of an opportunity. Messi comes on in like the 50 something minute, and that seemed to be all what the broadcasters want to display and everything. But let's not discount how, Yuya Kubo comes into this game and changes the game for FC Cincinnati. He played a heck of a game in the last like 40-45 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he showed the heart and showed the hustle. He didn't really play that well, in the Red Bulls game when he did start, played all 90 minutes. Felt like he could have contributed a little bit more, a little bit better. Obviously mentioned his lack of finishing in the first game, but yeah, in this one he definitely made up for it.
They had a role for him, especially, and kind of leading up to FC Cincinnati's goal. We started to press a little bit higher on some defenders that maybe were a little bit, I would say, like tireder or not as good on the ball. Because they had Messi, they were putting numbers forward. Inter Miami had to win this game, so they were pressing a lot more. And they had a 5-back, they switched to a 4-back. Pat sees the change and ends up keeping a higher line, presses him a little bit more. Messi loses the ball. We steal it away from him. Now Kubo's on the attack, rips a shot, and Barrial's in a good position and puts it away for our only goal of the game. But just incredible work by the front line and kind of getting that ball back and creating that opportunity. And props to Barrial for not just skying it over and actually placing it. That's what I wanted to give
I
him
did
credit for.
I did think it was funny that right before that though, Barrial gets dispossessed and he kind of like hobbles like he's injured or like has like a cramp or something. And then we win the ball back. It falls in his lap and he finishes it and he does like a calm, cool, collected celebration. No like jumping in the air or anything.
Yeah,
Like he
and then
just
he
like,
goes back and then he
I'm
asks for a
exhausted.
sub.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's like kind of playing into it and then was like, actually, you know what, I need to come out. But
Yeah.
hey, Brett
I
Halsey
don't know.
comes in and plays Messi pretty decently on that side after that play. One thing I wanted to touch on was at the very end, FC ends up closing it out. It wasn't like terribly nervy, but I'm going to get to it a little bit later in the game on what ends up happening with these ridiculous fouls and situations. So kind of stay tuned for that. We'll talk about that. But Arias getting into it with Messi is like awesome moment, just incredible
Love
moment
it.
for us.
Yeah.
So again, I'll chat about that in the second part of the pod here. Sam, I wanted to give you our trivia question of the week before we go to break here. You ready?
Yeah.
So couple stats here after the Inter Miami game. This was FC Cincinnati's 20th win of the year. Again, the first one we've had in Miami. So now we're 1-2-1 down there. FC Cincinnati's got an MLS low 3 road losses. Only 21 teams in MLS history have had 3 or fewer road matches, lost 3 or fewer road matches in a single season. And just 2 teams since 2012, actually, which is just incredible. New England in 2021 and LAFC in 2019. So for how bad we thought our road record was, like we actually have done pretty decent. So all this leading up to our overall record with 20 wins. My question for you, Sam, trivia question of the week. How many active coaches in the MLS have had 20 win seasons? MLS season only, excluding playoffs and other cup competitions.
Are we including Pat?
Including Pat Noonan.
This is gonna be a wild guess here. I feel like 20 wins is very, like, it hasn't happened. I'm trying to also think of like long tenured coaches. Like I know Sporting KC's coach has been around since like 2009, 2010.
We're talking active to the moment too. There's been some other
Yeah,
coaches that have been fired
that have
earlier
fallen
on
off.
as well.
Yeah.
But how many do you think?
I'm gonna go 3. I'm gonna go
Okay.
3 coaches, including Pat. Yeah.
Do you want to give me the other 2 that you're thinking of?
No, no, no shot.
Okay, that's fine. So stay tuned to the end of the
Yeah.
episode. What were you gonna say?
No, I mean, to your point earlier, the coaches that might have fallen off that really aren't active anymore, Bruce Arena would probably be one of those.
It's a good shout. There might be another Toronto guy that might have been that way as well, but stay tuned to the end. We'll give you the active, most up-to-date coaches. But we'll be right back.
So Agility is a technology-driven soccer training facility. So we offer 6 facets of training. That would be Tech Touch with ball launchers that work on your first touch, the TSZ, which is the ESA equipment and working on decision making. We also have a circuit. Circuit training would be taking the ESA equipment to the next level. It's kind of like a soccer obstacle course. Then we offer neuroscience training with our reflection tools, working on processing things a little bit faster, hand-eye coordination and such. We offer skills classes, which is your typical core skills training. Lots of people still enjoy that, so we work on a lot of attacking 1v1 skills. And then we also offer athlete development. So our athletes come here and they work on speed, agility, quickness, explosive movements, really just learning how to move and function a little bit better as an athlete.
Welcome back, everyone. We're here on an up and down week, but now here towards the end of the MLS season, I couldn't be happier as a fan of this team right now. In a great position going into the MLS Cup. Sam, I'm really excited about what's to come. On a high note, going into the playoffs, you're always excited, but especially after you have a trophy and under your belt too.
Yeah, absolutely. And another statistic I wanted to touch on was, after this last game with Inter Miami, that means FC Cincinnati has swept 4 teams this season in league play: NYCFC, Nashville, Toronto, and now Inter Miami. And our next game will be possibly 5 that we've swept when we play against Atlanta. So
that would be, I would think, up there for most amount of like sweeps in a season, which would be
pretty impressive.
Impressive, yeah. I mean, like we touched on, winning on the road. FC Cincinnati is also 14-1 in 1-goal games this year. So talk about games where, it's been nerve-wracking. It's a Cincinnati special, but 14-1, not even a tie, just 14-1, just winning it, you know what I mean? And holding on. That's the biggest thing this year versus last year. In games where we had leads and we couldn't hold on to leads, this year we've been dominant. That's been huge. And I think it comes from experience, being in those moments last year and now knowing what to do, and coaching, I think definitely plays into it. I wanted to give a special shout out to Nick Haglund. He's not my jersey swap, but he's my honorable jersey swap of the week. He surpassed 9,000 minutes for FC Cincinnati, which is the most in club history. So shout out to Nick Haglund. He's been a workhorse in the back line, even against Inter Miami, Messi, all of these guys, like Nick's in there competing. We thought he would just get completely destroyed when he would play these guys, but shout out to him. He's held his own.
Yeah, not bad. He hasn't made it look pretty, but he's got the job done.
He didn't fall on his face like we thought he would when he'd go against Messi. I mean, that's kind of what we predicted this whole time. But Sam, kind of on a good note, as we're shouting people out, what was your jersey swap of the week?
Yeah, I was going back and forth on who was going to be my jersey swap. I had two options. I want to shout out Arias. Arias was one option. He had a great game against Inter Miami, but my jersey swap of the week was the guy you talked about earlier, and that was Mascara. I was surprised going back at the game, looking at the stats, 136 touches, 112 passes, wow. Goes 5 for 7 on take-ons, and had 10 clearances. So to your point earlier, he played pretty well against Red Bulls. Game could have been a lot worse if he wasn't in that back line. And I also wanted to give him a shout out for getting called up to the national team. Sure. The last time he missed out due to injury. So happy to see him finally getting that call up for the World Cup qualifiers.
Good shout. I think we're going to be missing him a ton next year. I'm already missing the guy. Also shout out to Yerson for liking, one of our videos that we posted about him going around the field on multiple platforms. So Yerson, fan of the pod, appreciate you. He's been a heck of a player. I think what is he, 21 now, 22? He's young. I mean, he's got a future in the Premier League or whatever top league in Europe, at some point. Yerson, look back at us and remember all the good times. Maybe you can come back, and FC Cincinnati will, let you gladly come back to our back line. With him being that young, there's still a chance, of that. We'll kind of talk on it later too, but shout out to him for making the Colombia national team for World Cup qualifiers. Huge moment for the guy. I don't know if he'll get to play, but what an honor, for him. And for your point, between the two guys you were looking at, both made the Colombia national team for this call up for international break. So good pick, Sam. I like that.
Who was your jersey swap?
I had Alvaro Barreal. Shocker, right? I just think Barreal had a great game against Inter Miami. Obviously, he scores the goal. He's always kind of stepped his game up, especially, you could see it in Open Cup against Messi before. This time again against Miami, he kind of picked it up again. He's up to 5 goals and 5 assists in the MLS this year, which kind of ties him actually for last year's total. But in all competitions, I think he's got more assists than that, a couple more goals. Alvaro's just been the left wing back that we've always wanted, and that we never knew we had, to be honest with you, because he's just turned into such a special player. You saw it against New York Red Bulls, how much he changes this team when his presence alone elevates, from Ray Gaddis. No offense to Ray Gaddis, but you're talking about a guy that has been a, workhorse in MLS. He's been such a good veteran leader for us, but you put Alvaro in and he's the X factor. He can do things on that side that no one can match up against. It's Sam. It's like putting LeBron at the 3. No one can guard the guy. You know what I mean? Alvaro's just been incredible in cutting inside, coming outside, Sam, he's second in the league right now in throw-ins. So honorable shout out to Alvaro for the amount of
Well, I know at the
throw-ins he's
beginning of
had.
the year we were very like on the throw-ins because we were
Yep.
like, hey, we're leading the MLS in throw-ins.
He's only 2 behind. He's got time to come back and get the most throw-ins of the year. But he also, I think, is top 5 in crosses. So Barrial's
Yeah.
been a dude. He's been awesome. I hope he stays with us. If they open up a DP spot, give him the DP. I mean, that would be huge. That would be massive. Like if we get a 4th DP spot and we want to make him that, I would be very happy about that. Yeah, he's just been incredible.
Yeah. Good shout. Good shout. I think with him on the left-hand side, like you said, there's always going to be a chance for something, especially when he's got that wicked cross. There's always a chance where something could be in the mix in the middle. Maybe Vasquez, Bupenza, somebody gets a head on it or something, and he's the guy who puts it in play.
Did you see him at the end of the New York Red Bulls game? He was so upset with the ref. I've never seen him so upset. He goes up to the guy and he's like, "Good job. Way to make it all about yourself." Like, you know, he gives him a big thumbs up and walks away. It's like Alvaro is so petty and I love it. I love it.
You had said you were like, I've never seen him that heated ever.
He was heated. I mean, I think he got a yellow like at the end of the game.
Yeah, at the end of the game.
And the ref was just like waiting to give it to him too, because of like, I mean, he was just being that way, but I love it. I love the fire. And he usually kind of allows that to fuel himself for it. It doesn't like deter him from playing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So kind of on the flip side, we'll go over to our cards of the week. Sam, what was your card of the week?
My card of the week. I honestly didn't know whether to make this my jersey swap or my card. I kind of wanted to make it both at first, to be honest with you, but I'm gonna go with Inter Miami's Woodwork. The Woodwork made 5 saves on the night. Pretty
Good job,
impressive.
Woodwork.
FC Cincinnati had some chances. You had Bupenza's cross that was kind of a deflection that hit the post. And then you had Busquets, who almost put in an own goal off the same post. And then the Woodwork makes 3 crucial saves within the first 25 minutes of the game. Like, that's pretty impressive. Like, it kept Inter Miami from the playoffs as well. You know, you're hitting it on the crossbar. You're hitting it off the post. Like, what a save by the Woodwork. I just got to give my shout out to that. Like, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I don't know if that is a card, you know, like a good card, bad card, but
yeah, just very interesting. I don't know what kind of lubricant they're putting on the Inter Miami there, but everything seems to be just slipping off. Just I don't know.
It's the heat down in Miami.
It might be the moisture.
Yeah, that's what it is. But it was Roman Celentano's best friend for that game.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Quick shout out to him for getting his 12th shutout of the year, second most in the MLS. Roman, your Woodwork helped you out, brother, but you got another shutout. I love it.
Ryan, what was your card of the week?
All right. Well, I referenced it earlier, but all of these scam fouls on Messi, I am sick of it. He's only been in the league for like 2 months, but I've had enough. He had a game earlier in Leagues Cup where he shoved a guy down, didn't get a card. He has this play where Kubo's tracking him, you know, unbelievably well. Kubo gets all ball, no man, and they call it a foul because they're just trying to get Messi a free kick. You know, that happens. And I was losing it. I was so upset. Like, how are you going to call that? It's right in front of the, you know, ref again. So that's a dive on Messi. That should have been a yellow. And then Pinto actually, I think maybe gets a little bit of contact on him, but still Messi embellishes because, of course, he's going to try to get a free kick. So then, you know, that one happens at the very end of the game, but luckily he skies that over too. So inconsistency and, you know, fouls. What is a foul anymore? Again, like I'm just confused as to, I have so many questions. Like I feel like the ref needs to be fined or something for that or held accountable in some way. He was really trying to get them, to be honest, into the playoffs, you know? I mean, maybe the MLS had some play in it. I don't know. But I didn't like it.
Yeah, I think coming down to the end of the year, it's one of those things where it's I think we're gonna look at the playoffs and look more at not only we're gonna look at matchups, but also like who are we going to have as referees for those
Oh
games?
my gosh.
I
Yeah,
think
no
that's really
kidding.
what's going to be crucial, right?
I
Is
didn't
really
think about
looking at,
that.
okay, yeah, who is going to be the not only the main referee in the middle, but also, who's on the sides, who's the fourth official. Like,
Things you
these
shouldn't
things
have
are
to
going to
think
play
about.
into us. Yeah, and I think we may do like a whole like card of just like, okay, these are the guys to watch out for before
Let's
the
do a
playoffs
bit.
here, who
Yeah.
have done us dirty
We're
throughout the
gonna
year.
we're gonna do an MLS Cup preview. You heard it here first. MLS Cup preview, and we're gonna rank our officials that we want for the games. Add that to the description for this podcast because I think that needs to happen coming up here soon. It's again terrible. We have to talk about that as a talking point, except, like instead of the players on the field, we're talking about the refs that are reffing this game or not reffing this game because clearly they're not doing a good job. But yeah, that's a good point. I didn't really think about that, but that'd be interesting.
I want to see what FC Cincinnati Twitter has to say about that. I'll put something out, either today or tomorrow.
Call.
Like, who do you want to see? Like, who's the refs that you actually wouldn't mind seeing, ref in an FC Cincinnati playoff game?
I don't remember the good ones. I only remember the bad ones, though. That's the problem. Because it's just like you want to go back and look at their name. They're like, who was that guy? That guy was terrible. But yeah, maybe the no names are the better ones. Anyway, we'll move on. International break. FC Cincinnati has a little bit of a break here again. I think this is like our third or fourth international break of the year. Again, more
Third.
of a like selling point that Supporter Shield is the better trophy. I mean, these guys have to play through an international break before they come back for the last game of the year. Imagine if this game actually meant something for our team and how upset we would be that there's a potential that they get injured with their club or their country, I should say. They're traveling, all over the world in some instances. So I just think that, again, it kind of goes to our point that winning Supporter Shield, winning over the full course of the season is more impressive. Do you have an international break during your MLS Cup? No, you don't. How many have we had? How many different tournaments for the club and, country? I mean, it's incredible. So shout out, though, to Santiago Arias for making Colombia, Yerson Mosquera, again for Colombia, and then I believe Junior Moreno for Venezuela.
Yeah.
All those guys going for their World Cup qualifications this week. It'll give me something to watch for the boys, at least. Maybe they'll get some minutes because in the last one, none of them played except for, I think, Pupenza.
Yeah, just a little Guban action in there, but
yeah,
I think it'll be interesting to see if they use Mosquera at all, considering the last time he missed out because he was injured.
Yeah,
hopefully he does, like you said. But rolling into kind of the next segment here, we got MLS awards that have been announced. To your point that you made, we have a lot of guys that are nominated. I believe you said 7 FC players are up for MLS awards.
and a coach.
We got MVP, Lucho, Celentano for goalkeeper of the year, Miazga and Mosquera for defender of the year, Mosquera for newcomer of the year, Mosquera for young player of the year, Arias for comeback player of the year, Alec Khan for the impact award in the community, and then of course Pat Noonan for coach of the year.
Awesome achievements to even be nominated for all of those in every category. I mean, top to bottom. I'm sick of the talk online. This will be my honorary red card of the week. I brought it out, Sam. It's the first time we've done this, but I am sick of this talk about the MVP going to Roman Berkey. I'm sick of it. It needs to go to Lucho. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that they're even considering it. I mean, Lucho, 16 goals, 13 assists, most goal plus assist contributions, right? He's twice been player of the match day, twice been player of the MLS for player of the month, I think. This is an incredible stat. I don't want to mess this one up too. So it's the 4th time that Lucho's been named for player of the month, trailing only Landon Donovan, Carlos Ruiz, and Joseph Martinez. So incredible that he's even being, mentioned with these guys and twice having player of the month. Most valuable player for his team, it can't be a goalkeeper because like he makes the saves when he has to there, but he's not positively impacting them unless you want to say like the saves count as that. But Lucho does more for this team on both facets as a leader, as everything. I mean, emotionally, I don't care what it is. Lucho is your MVP, undoubtedly. Best team in the MLS. How are you going to go against that?
Yeah. So to your point, as far as how the voting will work for those individual MLS awards is, all of the MLS club technical staff, MLS players, and then media members are all going to vote on their respective kind of categories. The only things that the fans will get to vote on are the goal of the year and the save of the year. Those are the only things that fan votes actually matter and determine the winners of.
So is St. Louis's player going to be up for goal of the year? You know, are they going to get to vote for that one? I can't believe it. It's ridiculous. But anyway, Sam, thank you for the insight on that. I didn't honestly realize who was all involved with the voting process. But the
So everybody
players
gets one as well. So
the
it's not
players and the
like
coaches have a huge say in this, it seems like, and they will see because of who they have played is, you know, who's valuable. And that's Lucho. He is got to
the
be the most
votes,
valuable.
the vote totals are kind of awarded, I think, by October 23rd.
Okay.
So we'll see who will win those awards October 23rd at like 5 o'clock, I think it says. So
2 days after the last game of the season.
yep.
Yeah. I think personally, you know, he gets MVP. Pat Noonan deserves coach of the year.
Has to.
You know, everyone's saying that Bradley Carnell with an expansion team getting it. Do you have 20 wins? Did you win a trophy this year yet? No. You know, what's your record at home versus away? Like, look at all the records we've had. It's incredible. And what Pat's done in 2 years to transform the team. If you look at Carnell, he's been with them for 2 years as well. Look at his trajectory and look at ours and where they're at. I mean, turning the team around from what we had, unbelievable. And being limited in the rosters, you know, in that sense too. Pat's unbelievable in that sense. So those two are my locks. Other ones that I think should be honorable for potentials. Do you think Yerson has one in him?
I don't know because he missed time. I'm not too sure because he's up for 3 awards, right?
True.
So he's got 3 chances to win an award, and I think if he's going to win one, it's going to be more newcomer of the year or young player of the year. I would say more newcomer.
Yeah, for sure. Because Almada, I think, is going to be the young player of the year again. I think Matt Miazga is a lock for defender of the year.
Yeah.
Any debate on that?
I mean, it's hard not to argue against him. I can't really think of, anyone else by the, at the top of my head, but
when Matt Miazga is on the field, FC Cincinnati's points per game is 2.14, highest of any player in the MLS for points per game. When he is not on the field, it's a lot less, you know? So look at that stat alone and you see how valuable he is in the back. We've said it all year long. But Miazga, I think, wins defender of the year for sure. Yeah. Who called it 2 years ago that he needed to come to us, by the way? This guy. I really wanted Matt. I'm so happy. Like we talked about, look at all of our positions in the defense. We have guys that I was looking at this the other day, Sam. Arias played for Atletico Madrid in Champions League. Yerson Mosquera could play in the Premier League. Matt Miazga's played in the Premier League. Barrial could play for Ajax and probably the Champions League. You know, Roman has a shout for making a pretty good, European team. Mourinho is the only one where I'd say he's probably at about, the place he should be. Obi's played and led the Turkish league in tackles. Lucho was getting looks at PSG. Vasquez has been looked for Bundesliga, and Bupenza's led the Turkish league in goals. Every single position we have studs. I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think that goes to show to your point of why Pat needs to be coach of the year right there. Just the turn of the team,
And getting the
and
most from
just
all of them
the
to play together.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah, and the experience, but to get them to gel. Like, it's easy to say, "Oh, look at all the talent he's had," but like, you have to still put that together. You still have to get them to play the best way that they can. And through a long season where if you have so much good talent, then that means that your country is going to come after those guys, and then you're not going to have them for long stretches for your club team. Arguably, to me, that's harder. Ask Seattle Sounders. Look at all their guys that have been gone historically. I think that makes it way more challenging when you have guys that are being pulled in all different directions. Pat for coach of the
Yeah.
year. Pat for
Yeah.
coach of the year.
I'm with you. I'm excited to see where all the like awards go.
Yeah.
I'm really excited to see it.
Yeah, we can chat even more, maybe next episode too.
Yeah,
FC Cincinnati doesn't have a game until the 21st of October. So we have some other notes we're going to cover, next episode. But Sam, I wanted to give you our trivia, our trivia answer. You ready?
Yep.
So again, the question, how many active coaches in the MLS have had 20 win seasons? That's in the MLS, excluding tournaments, excluding other cup competitions, stuff like that. 21 seasons in the MLS. Sam had locked in 3. Didn't want to give me the other 2, but Pat Noonan was one of them. The answer is actually 5.
Oh, wow.
5 is very interesting. So some really, really kind of cool talking points here that we can kind of get into. Pat Noonan this year, we have 20 wins. The more recent one, the last year, actually, Wilfred Nancy, before he was at the Crew, was with Montreal. They had 20 wins. And then LAFC, I should say. So Steve Cherundolo, also 21 wins. Greg Vanney, 2017 with Toronto, now the LA Galaxy coach, but Toronto team that he led that Nick Hagelin won, the MLS Cup in. So that was interesting. And then Tata Martino, 2018 with Atlanta, not the year that they even won the MLS Cup, actually, that they lost to the Red Bulls, I think, in like the second or third round of the playoffs.
Wow.
Going back to the coaching battles, this coaching staff had something out for Inter Miami, taking it to Tata, who has had a 21 season, who's coached at Barcelona, who had all these players, and we knocked him out of the playoff contentions. I mean, that's huge for us in the MLS Cup. I'm really excited to kind of see how this all shakes down. But I thought it was pretty interesting. There's been very few teams that have ever reached 20 wins in a single season. And for us to actually have one, here and the season we've had has just been awesome. So cool.
Yeah, the 5 coaches, I mean, I thought it'd be less than that, considering how often you're talking about that this happens. But yeah, it goes to show the level of competition in MLS continues to rise year after year. The past 3-4 years, you could see the quality not only of the players but also the coaches that are coming into the MLS to kind of build these teams up and create these monsters of teams that win 20 games a year.
Yeah. I mean, and to kind of like weather the storm to be able to do it too, like we've been talking about with all these competitions, it's only going to get harder. It's only going to get more challenging to do through, the salary limitations. Maybe that changes things, but excuse me. Yeah, I think we talked about, windows of opportunity for teams to win and contend. And that window has gotten narrower and narrower over the past few years. So for us to take, from last year, a 5th place finish in the East and go all the way up to 20 wins, maybe 21 by the end of the year for the regular season out of 34 is just insane. Insane. I mean,
Love it.
what did we get? Like 4 or 5 wins in the first 2 or 3 seasons. I mean, winning feels nice, man. I like it.
Love it.
So, Sam, any final thoughts?
No, kind of, taking it easy here the next week. And then we'll do a big preview of the Atlanta United game, and then hopefully we've got, some other news to talk about as well.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Even in, an off week per sense, there's a lot of storylines, going on, a lot of stuff around the MLS, a lot of coaches being fired, media people not showing up for their job in Minnesota. I don't know if you saw that, but the broadcast got canceled from, MLS TV or whatever, from Apple TV. A lot of very interesting things. Some teams already announcing their, staff decisions for next year and everything. And we're not even to the final game of the year, so we got a lot more winning to do. Like, Jeff Birding has been saying. I didn't get his quote during the Shield celebration, but I really wish that we had. I wanted to hear a 2.0 of that.
Yeah, that would have been icing on the cake, right?
So, all right, Sam. Well, thanks again, everyone, for listening. And we'll see you guys next week.
Whoa.